Consciousness, higher self, ETs, UFOs, occult, tarot, miracles, healing, power of prayer, God, all myth and fairy tale and a load of old nonsense. Or actually very much a part of our reality. Despite evidence from the Sumerian times right up to the modern day, there's so many people that just write all that stuff off as spiritual guff. It's put into different people, put different bits into different boxes, but ultimately those boxes are all labelled not for me. Why are we so scared of the supernatural and yet super intrigued at the same time? Do we all just actually need to grow up a little bit? A lot. And start exploring how much of this is very much actually a part of the reality of our human experience and our spiritual progression. Hi, Reverend Grace here, your realistic mystic. This week's offering something, like all the things that I churn around in my brain. The great mystery, like the great mystery of it all. So you could say God ultimately is the great mystery. And then depending how you think of God, whether God is like the man in the sky, the head of the Sky Council, or who is literally the king of the kingdom, or whether you think of God as in the ground of all being, the thing we call consciousness, the divine particle in each of us. Ultimately, there are the bigger questions. Why are we here? What is this all about? What is the point? And is it all just some kind of a computer game for somebody? Whilst I'm not trying to attempt in this video to answer that question today, but I do ask things like what happens when we get into a state where we all write off all the sort of more mystical and supernatural things as fairy story and myth. Like, myth is got no truth in it. It is literally some human made up story that has no real actual substantial significance of being a human being living in this material world. And of course there are the people that, those among us that are very much having a spiritual experience or trying to have an understanding of what that means. And that comes out in all kinds of different faith paths, people in different churches, to what people would call as more new age, and the box now that lots of people are ticking, I'm spiritual but not religious. Now, whether that's them trying to separate themselves from the organisations of religion, whether that some would say, oh, that's some sort of, hedonistic, self-willed, egotistical way to go down. Yeah, there's we all know the different sides, don't we? There's a lot going on. But yeah, where is the meaning anymore if we start writing off all those things as not real because we haven't experienced them themselves, or we watch so many films and these sort of all these kinds of things are being dealt with in Hollywood these days. Marvel, I've not seen any of the Marvel films, but apparently they dig into all kinds of interesting mystical and spiritual sort of lessons and texts and different things, apparently. But it's still a movie. It's just something you go and watch at the cinema. It can make it not real, even though those films have been based on something that is real and tangible. We can think about, or we've come to think about, the meaning of life is family, time spent with family and friends. That time again gets really eaten up with going out to eat in the plethora of restaurants that are everywhere. Yeah, for some it's beautiful and they're going out to places and they're making their own picnic and they're going to go and sit out in a place of nature and have a picnic. But look at how many are just going to Wetherspoons and different restaurants and shopping, or going on holiday and just consuming. It's is that really where meaning lies? It's beautiful to spend time with your family, but how often is that actually sitting, say, praying together? Or I mean, that's just unheard of. People look at you like, what? No, we're not doing that. There are lots of people that don't want to seem involved with religion and spirituality. Some things that it's embarrassing, to be connected or to be seen, whether that's, going and learning tarot. There are some maybe friends that you'd have that would be like, oh yeah, great, and others would be like, what are they doing that for? That you have crystals around your house, there'd be some that like, oh yeah, the power of crystals amazing, and others would look like, oh, she's one of them, she's got crystals, probably got incense burning as well. Yeah. Yogurt weaving. There's a lot of people who they're really in fear of being ridiculed for talking about their faith or saying that they have a faith. There are others that are absolutely strident and they go to church and that's what they do, but they're in a lovely community, so they tend to sort of be able to express their faith with them, and they're not going to be ridiculed and questioned. And maybe friends that don't have a faith, then maybe they fall by the wayside. I guess that happens to some. Social patterns have changed. I would think it's definitely my parents' generation that you still probably, chances are you would have had your children christened, but outside of that you would only have gone to church probably at Easter, maybe Christmas Eve, probably definitely for midnight mass, but even that is falling by the way for so many. Somebody said to me the other day, she's concerned for the spiritual welfare of our children. They're our future generation. Parents have made certain choices and decisions which is now being passed down, that the kids just don't know any different. They're not taken to Sunday school, and I can understand why. Some people, they don't want the children being indoctrinated with things that they don't believe in, and it is a case of going yourself to different churches and finding the one that fits you. I'm not sure if you sent your children to Rudolf Steiner schools, they would be very much raised with amazing sort of potential for spiritual understanding and knowledge and teaching, I guess. I only did some work experience, or part of my teacher training, in the nursery, in the kindergarten section, so I never went up to the older classes. But I know that Steiner's philosophies were very much, it was completely spiritual based, and they certainly have a certain way of doing things, and I would say that they're amazing schools. But outside of that, I don't know. You see the different Christian churches and they do things like messy church. It's all arts and crafts, and it's doing, colouring in Jesus and sticking a bit of straw on the bottom and taking it home for your mum. I'm not entirely sure that there's and I would so love to have a church like it one day. It's as much for the children as it is for the adults, but is very child-based in making sure that our children are given just a broader view of things, and not necessarily just from one faith path, and understanding their divinity, or at least letting them start to explore that for themselves and see that there is that aspect to the world. But anyway, I'm sidetracking. As the scientific age has progressed, and science and medicine and home decorating, TV and shopping, and Disney taking over our fairy stories, as all that has become sort of the God and spiritual time replacement, we're looking for more dopamine hits rather than spiritual states of ecstasy. Our attention spans are diminished. Whilst there are lots of people, it's fantastic. They're getting into, you know, there was the yoga trend and the meditation trend, and then that went to mindfulness trend, and yeah, more people talking about consciousness and spirituality and starting to gain some understanding of that. There was quite a sense of people just joining in with a trend there, and are they sort of keeping it within, I've questioned whether they're keeping it in sort of safe parameters for themselves. It's not quite the same as really realizing your sacred divinity and sitting with God, of whatever understanding God is for you, but just, yeah, allowing that time to sit in honoring of the divine part of yourself, but really in the honoring of and connection to that something other, the something greater than all of us. Of course, as social patterns changed, coming out of the 60s and the 70s, and then those people are growing up and they're having their kids, you know, in the 70s, 80s, it's hard to keep up a discipline of going to church every Sunday when you're really hungover because you've been out the night before. And I think it's there's different things going on. I think there's a force of things playing out as they are meant to. And it's interesting to see this rise in the decline of structured, the old school religions that we've had around for so long, or at least like Jesus doesn't seem to be disappearing. There's a lot of people coming to Christ, but they're not necessarily wanting to go to good old Church of England or, yeah, something more traditional. They're seeking something. They're seeking something outside of that. And all the people, yeah, that are getting into spirituality, be it through goddesses and nature and all the rest of it, I think this is supposed to be the richness of the tapestry. And of course, even those that have been going to church, they've been taught and told certain things, especially in the traditional churches, Catholic and Church of England. Some are more staunch than others. I guess it depends on the minister that you get. But you're taught certain things, and usually it's to be scared of anything that's slightly different or supernatural. Which is interesting, isn't it? When you think that most of the things in the Bible are actually supernatural. But there's a great fear of it. It's dangerous ground. You don't want to be going there. You don't want to be messing with that stuff. Now, yeah, certainly there is. There is stuff, and there are places that it's not wise to tread. It's not wise to tread. You know, it's like the kids years ago that used to get the Ouija boards, and it was released as a board game. Literally, like I still find that I marvel over that today. But yeah, people wanting to delve into, anyway, it's that sort of a thing. It tars a lot of things with the same brush. I do think that when we get in this place where we have no comprehension of spirit or consciousness, no willing to explore, you know, myth, the sacred, ancient history, sacred texts, when you don't have any sense of the divine, when you don't believe that there is any power greater than you. Ironically, I think that those are the people that are living actually more in delusion and in illusion. The more I look into all of this stuff, and you can say, oh well, you know, I've just been swayed. No. It's there's stuff going on. There is the great mystery, and I think it's coming to grips with that, and not accepting that it's just all about this material world. And of course, with that comes, you know, we've been so, and I've watched programs about marketing and how they've advertising and yeah, how they've really got people sucked in. And this is with brands and buying and having the next new thing. And, you know, we can see it all around us. We all do it. People are really starting to have a sense that there's more to this. And, but it's interesting how things are still, for people, compartmentalized into how far they'll go with belief or understanding or acceptance. Interesting. Trusty whiteboard. We haven't had the whiteboard out. Got a big pen. Okay. So that list of things at the beginning, and a few more probably. We're really like great at compartmentalizing stuff. It's almost like we have a filing cabinet in the brain. And we can make logical explanations depending on our own sense of reality for everything. So let's have divine truth, fairy story, new age spiritual guff, occult, outright demonic. As usual, you can only just about see all of the board. So let's start with fairies. Easy one. It's a fairy story. They're absolutely not real. Many people, I think partly because it is fairy stories, and it starts with the tales grim, and then which literally fairy stories are grim. When you start, there's a brilliant channel where the girl, she goes right into the history of each fairy story that we all know. They're fascinating. I should find the link for her channel. But generally it's the Disney kind of a thing, and it's literally written off. So I was born in the 70s, and ever since then in my lifetime, yeah, fairies are just Enid Blyton. It's stories in a book. It's for children. They've been brought into more adult life again by Hollywood, different films. But yeah, we can put fairies in there. Ghosts. Lots of people will tell you they've seen ghosts. You hear more people saying that. But for most, people are going to say fairy story, not even a reality. Ghosts. Angels. Again, many people have said they've seen angels. So for some, they're going to say New Age spiritual guff. Some are going to say divine truth. They're godly, they're goodly. Angels are very much real. Some, we're going back to the fairy story column, not real. Occult, people tend to think of, you know, lovely angels on Christmas cards with wings on. Some would say there are dark angels, but yeah, it's not. We're going to keep angels up that end. ETs and UFOs, and with this I'll put in light orbs. People are mostly going to say load of new age spiritual guff. And fairy stories, because again, they're in films, and you know, it's not real. Fairy stories. So there are some that are going to say that ETs are actually potentially like a demonic, depending if you're thinking of an extraterrestrial like it's us, like they're just from another planet, or whether you think of them as some sort of divine realm thing, and you can have demonic forms. So we have entities. Again, there'll be some that put those entities in a new age spiritual guff, fairy stories, and probably some the occult. People thinking of like ceremonial practices people are, apparently some are doing with blood sacrifice and things. I don't know either way, but I'm guessing they're probably not great people. Whether they're entities or human beings that have gone bad, or I don't know, but yeah, some would say that's the occult. They're bringing it through in occult ceremonies. Tarot. Any kind of well, you can definitely put it in a cult, because those that go to church and things, they, you know, oh, it says in the Bible divination and all the rest of it, you shouldn't be doing it. Tarot is yeah, they would say that's a cult. It's stuff you shouldn't touch. Tarot in New Age spiritual guff, you know, it's like, oh yeah, get your pendulum out and all the rest of it. It's just a nonsense. They just think people think it's ridiculous. Doesn't really come under fairy story. It's not that kind of a thing. But you have others that would put tarot under divine truth, because you are, you are in a time. You're in a time where you're connecting to, like, or you're speaking through intuitively through, you know, it's the high consciousness speaking. You're reading the cards. You're doing that with a certain base of knowledge, of understanding, but also when it really flows in a tarot reading, you're, it is like you're connecting to something else, but that it's a higher goodness, it's not a dark occult thing. But of course, this is one of the things of, you know, people have been led to fear. Oh no, I watched this video. It's one of Tom Medjugorje's. There's a woman on there, Catholic woman, and she has made a life and career from writing books and lecturing Catholics in different places around the world. They get her as like a guest speaker, about how even doing things like yoga is demonic. I mean, this woman is deadly serious, deadly serious. She's saying that each pose is calling in another god, like a entity sort of a thing, not a lovely god, like calling in wrong gods, demonic forces. I mean, how many people would put yoga in demonic? I think you can know very little about yoga, but you're not going to be putting a yoga class in the demonic section, I would say. I mean, I don't mean to take the piss out of you, lady, but I mean, it got me when I watched that program. It really got me, because she was talking about all sorts, lots of things that's in this lit, and you just think, wow, there's a classic example of not only somebody taking their own doctrine, their own dogma and beliefs, and ramming it down people's throats and appearing to be loving the attention and the adulation that people has given her at these talks and in buying her books and things. And maybe for some's reality, she's right, and that's how it's meant to be. Like I say, we're all sort of, you know, part of the tapestry. And I do accept that, but at the same time, I just think, I don't want to say there's a right and a wrong, because of this thing of we're all, you're learning lessons about things from experiences from people that rub you up the wrong way, or people that don't agree with the things that you say. But sometimes you can't help thinking, dear, I don't know. It didn't seem, it seemed to write off a thing and really staunchly saying in it a way. There was no leeway there. Whereas I'm inclined to think that, there's the intention is just not there to be bringing in demonic forces through getting in some lycra and going and doing bendy stretchy on a mat with a load of other women, sometimes in an incredibly hot room. What is that all about? Are they trying to replicate India? I don't know. Oh my word. Energies, where are we going to put energies? Oh, some think it's absolutely, like, whether it's earth energies or our body energy, or, you know, they're absolutely putting that in spiritual new age guff, no doubt about it. Divine truth. Yeah, it depends whether you're thinking of energy as in, you know, some people thinking literally electric, when really we are talking about something like connecting with consciousness. Where would we put consciousness? It's got to come in divine truth, I would think. again, it comes down to what your thinking consciousness is. Is it literally the thing that you're either conscious or you're unconscious? If we're unconscious, people think that's a bit alarming. They've got to start checking whether they need to do CPR and stuff. When you go to sleep and you're unconscious, nobody bats an eyelid at that. Or whether you think of consciousness as literally, it is the thing within us, the soul, the spirit, the part of us that connects to the higher self, that's either an individual in a sort of a heaven realm or in a pool of, going back to source, the ground of all being, the field. I can never remember what the word is in the physics, quantum field. Again, we're compartmentalising. The more study we've done and the more science we've had and the more research of scriptures and ancient history, it's like a bombarding thing, but it's made us compartmentalise even more. We're all trying to place these things into which section it goes into. I mean, consciousness, the way it's spoken about by some people, they would put it in New Age spiritual guff all day long. Even if maybe, again, it comes down to this language thing and understanding of language, because some people would believe in maybe us having a soul or a spirit. That's the bit of us that leaves when we die. But they won't be getting into consciousness if they think it's something to do with like Buddhist meditation, if they're a very staunch Christian. Or a Christian wouldn't see it. Some Christians have been taught certain things that are not about Jesus coming here to teach us about raising our consciousness. He came here to teach us how to be good and kind and lovely. I think he did a bit of both. But yeah, again, it's how people are placing it in their brains. Oh, there's a whole load, isn't there? I mean, there's more we could add on here. Astral projection. Astral projection, New Age guff. People are like, astral projection, are you just taking acid? There's others, you see, that would think astral projection is the occult. They would also potentially put it into demonic. That's coming probably from a fear of what are you stepping into, where are you going when you're trying to take your consciousness, your spirit or soul out of your body to go somewhere else. In this thing of the power of the mind, like people think, oh, imagination, we're coming back to fairy stories. It's all just imagination, we're just making it up in our heads. The power of when people are teaching about manifestation and they're talking about really picturing it in the mind, really visioning it, working your way through a thing that you want and how it's going to work and how it's going to feel. There's a great power to that. An astral projection, so yeah, it is like dreaming or but you're conscious, you're taking yourself out, you're trying to take yourself out into another realm. So yeah, I guess if you're doing this and you're messing around with stuff that you're not ready for, or you're opening yourself up to things, there's a lot of people would say that you're at risk of entities and demonic, because you're playing with stuff that you don't know what you're doing. Yeah, I guess that could well be true. Kundalini. This is like, people put that straight in New Age spiritual guff. Load of old nonsense. Some people, chakras, that will go in there. What a load of old nonsense. And then you've got like, it's a little bug. You've got the lady who was on that video. She would put that that would go straight into occult, and it would go straight into demonic. I mean, she's obviously of an extreme thing, but she's got a lot of people that seem to go to these talks. Otherwise, she wouldn't be booked everywhere around the world as an interesting speaker if nobody wanted to listen. So, but Kundalini rising again. Now, this became one of these like, a trendy thing, a thing to try and achieve. Like doing ayahuasca. I've done an ayahuasca trip. There are always the people that are genuinely doing these things, But then there are the people that are jumping on board. It's a bit like, you know, take your influencers on Instagram and all the rest of it. It's like people that, it's your Instagram life stuff. People are going, and I mean, in another way, fantastic. If you're going and doing it for some genuine spiritual enlightenment, and you're not overdoing it, and you're a person who's prepared, or you're well looked after in this experience, I'm sure that's fantastic. But plant medicine, I just feel that I would hate it to take the sacredness out of where that's come from and what that is for humanity, that plant medicine, the gift that has been given there by either Mother Earth or Creator God, or yeah. Kundalini is also, it strikes me, it's a thing of people trying to reach this either attainment thing. I've made it to the top of the podium, I've got the medal, I've you know, my Kundalini rising has shot through my head and I'm just like beaming out of my third eye, and I don't know, I'm not entirely sure how it works. I do know how it works, but I don't know how it works. It's not something I'm interested in dedicating my life to. I've got enough with all of this. And also it was the thing of the hedonistic side of us, the egoic hedonistic side, wanting to take over a bit and going, wow, let's feel the power of that Kundalini rising. Woo! Yeah. And well, that's enough on that. Mediumship. Now, some people are definitely going to put that in fairy stories because they just think it can't be true. Like, you can't talk to dead people, you can't connect with spirit. Yeah, that's just absolute rubbish. There would be some people that are going to think that, not exactly divine truth, but when they, some mediums, they will be parts of spiritualist church, there will be a religious spiritual element to it. It is part of their connection with the divine. So perhaps they would put that in more the divine truth column. Mediumship, definitely going into new age spiritual guff. Some people are just like, oh no. Just, I've found actually more recently, I do a lot of funerals and working with families as both a funeral director and a celebrant and a minister, and I've had certain experiences that make me know that there is definitely more to this. And so I find that there's certain stories that I tell them, and there are things that have happened to me, and they're either being very kind and sweet, or I'm being paired with families by the divine or otherwise that are more sort of have resonance with me, or people are just opening up a bit more to that. It's interesting. Mediumship, yeah. There's cultures that they wouldn't call it mediumship, and they wouldn't think it's a thing that you do in a village hall with somebody, like you pay a price and you go into a psychic thing. They just wouldn't see it as that. They wouldn't dismiss it as that. It would just be a part of their village. It would be a part of their daily life. There would be at least one guy or woman in the village that could be it, you know, reading tea leaves, or just knowing instinctually through spirit. Yeah, it would just be a... So, spirit. Okay, spirit, absolute divine truth. Sorry, you can't see that column. Spirit would absolutely go in divine truth. Of course it wouldn't for some, because they don't believe in God and they think that we're just here and then we die and that's that. There's nothing after this. There's no part of us that goes on anywhere else. But Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost, ground of all being, quantum field, the life force, the energy, the resonance, the frequency, the sound, the what, you know, it's all going to go in divine truth under the word spirit. So yeah, for some, absolute fairy story, complete nonsense. Definitely spirit is going, whether you have it with a capital S or a little s, spirit is definitely going in the new age guff. Some that are more feared of it would think it of spirit in terms of spirits. Yeah, it's potentially demonic and it's occult. And again, people doing ceremonies and rituals and trying to raise up and connect with spirit. It can be. So we got spirit right across the board. But again, there are. I'm trying to think of the tribe or the people in West Africa somewhere. But it's all over. It's you know, your Americas, Australia, but anywhere where there's your indigenous native people from an ancestry that they still hold on to, and they still tell the stories and the legends and the history and the, you know, they're passing down spiritual teachings. They just, now whether you say it's because they're living far more in tune with nature, and or whether they do just have this far broader expansive world, not worldview, but yeah, well, their view of the world, yeah, that there is just spirit in everything. We think of a rock as a rock, oh, you know, it's just a rock, but they know the life force in that rock. Yeah, like there's this underlying power, which funnily enough, this underlying power, spirit, is in every column, because that's the whole point. It's the ground of being. Some would call spirit God, some would have the Trinity. Yeah, because again, we're all different. So then spiritual warfare. Now, there are some that would put that in the spiritual guff, New Age, because this is a sort of this is a term that's used. I hear it more and more. Just recently, content, especially on YouTube, has been popping up. Not because I've searched it, and I guess because once I've but these are sort of slightly connected videos, but they're actually quite different in their. Some are really old lectures, and some is modern day sort of commentators and people now. It's interesting when things keep popping up like this. Some would put spiritual warfare in the fairy story, because again, you're coming back to something like the Star Wars film, you know, not real, just a made up story. So some would have this now. Some that are in the New Age category would put spiritual warfare up as a divine truth, that this is going on, that this is the state of how it is. And because we're scaring ourselves of the supernatural and having a fear of it and not wanting to try to understand or explore it, yeah, are we diddling ourselves by not having an awareness of spiritual warfare? Yeah, an awareness with understanding. And definitely there would be those that, as much as they put it in the divine truth thing, it's not that, well, yeah, because actually that's the whole point, isn't it? There's the two sides. You've got your divine truth side, you've got your well, you've got your demonic side. Obviously the demonic people would put the occult, they'd pair those two together. But this is, I think the occult is very much like the human beings trying to get to, you know, they're in this end of things. But some people, the occult, actually it's just New Age stuff. So, you know, there's this is part of the, you know, it's like another polarity in humans, that you've got a sort of a, you know, some things that are occult. Some people say tarot, absolutely fine. Entities and trying to summon them up, bad juju, not doing it, which just is, you know, that makes sense. Whereas the demonic side of it, in this spiritual warfare sense, they are the other side. So we literally, you know, funnily enough, I didn't plan it like this, but we do have, you know, the divine at one end and the demonic at the other, and that would be the two sides of the spiritual warfare. And what is going on with the spiritual warfare? So it is apparently coming down to taking over our souls. Sounds scary. How can that be a reality? Where is that coming from? Let's have a look at that. So there's like two aspects to it. One is those people that have gone to churches and they are told either directly in their church, or things like presenters come who've written books and they come to give a talk in their church hall, and it's about how demonic, you know, anything new age and spiritual is, and they're all going off the rails, and you need to stick to this dogma and all the rest of it. But even actually in the teachings of the church, there's only so much supernatural that people are fed, and there's an awful lot of people that don't seem to be able to stomach the supernatural side. But even that supernatural side, when I say supernatural, I'm also meaning like either the mystical kind of things or the things that people would say is fairy tales. So for example, there are people doing study now and content on YouTube and Substack and all different places, and they are doing content on extraterrestrials in the Bible. And there's a really good Praveen, can't remember his surname, Praveen Mohan, I think that's right. He's looking at the really ancient carvings on the temples in India, and there's, you know, evidence of ETs and spaceships and UFOs and all the rest of it on there. Interesting. But there's lots of people doing all this sort of stuff, and yet that's not what you're going to be taught in church. You're not going to be pointed out about Ezekiel and the thing that came down in flames with wheels on and all the rest of it. It's not going to be a part of your it's not going to be part of your Sunday sermon, I don't think. Not in your standard church, no. And then there's the other half of it, fear coming from people making the content on YouTube, where it's all like about grabbing attention and scaring the life out of you, but just enough, but with interest and intrigue and titillizing. I think that's the word that that could be used there. And that's part of the dopamine hit as well, isn't it? Flicking through those little shorts of things that look fascinating, but they're quite often presented in, like, again, it's a bit like people's love for and thirst for horror movies and the really scary action stuff with all the death and the garrotting and the it's like, you know, medieval times, but you're just watching it on a screen. People, maybe did the medieval like go into battle? I don't suppose they did, and yet why is there such a human thirst to go and see that sort of violence in films? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it's making stuff into movies that people are getting they're getting a kick from the fear. And yet a lot of those movies, yeah, they're about stuff that are drawn on certain potential realities and truths that have been documented or known about, or whatever, you know, within human history, or research and stuff that's come out in the last few decades. Yeah, interesting. So yeah, a lot of that sort of YouTube content is it is focusing on the demonic or the bad side. So, you know, there are entities good and bad. There are Elohim in the Bible, good and bad. There are you know, good and bad is just such clumsy words to use, but you get the point. It's, you know, it's one side or the other. But if there is some sort of spiritual warfare being waged, then what is like the best thing to do about it? How much do we actually really need to be concerned? And if demonic forces really are at work, then, and in the way that people say that they are, then there are a lot of people you can imagine, young people, that are going to be pretty easy pickings. If it's a case that there are demonic forces vying for our souls or our consciousness or our attention, and they are feeding on things like fear, well, it's almost sometimes like, and again, I do wonder if this is just like larger cycles rolling out. You know, we're all here for a short lifespan compared to the whole great picture of it. But it can seem like there is a conspiracy against humanity to have leaders in place that are just squashing us down and petrifying us, holding us in a place of fear. Now, whether that's because all of our leaders have actually, you know, been taken over by some demonic thing, Maybe that's where people say money is bad, because most of these people, all of these people are actually stinking rich, and they're in places of really high power. So yeah, taking the broader span view out, this is just part of a big play that's rolling out, and this is what we're seeing here in our lifetime. And we're just at a point here where this is the stage of how life is. But actually, we're now. The thing about New Age is people are so berating about New Age, and I can see why in some ways, but in other ways, no, we're literally moving into a new age, people. It's like, there was the Piscean age and the age of Taurus, and we've had a Leo, and we're now moving into the age of Aquarius, and that is just known as being a time of truths opening up and our consciousness elevating. No, not everybody, because everybody's at different stages. Not everybody is going to go with that, but it's going to be like the critical mass. It's going to be like the larger number of people, and I think we can see that happening for all the shit that seems to be flung at us, and the bloody stuff on the pouring out in the media, and wow. We all know we're being bombarded again. I think it's part of the cycle. It's just where we're at. It's the rough before the smooth, the cold, dark bit before the dawn. I think we're in that, but that stage could take like hundreds of years, thousands of years, who knows? Well, I don't know. I'm sure some smart aleck knows. If they don't, they'll probably just tell you about it anyway. So when people aren't going to churches anymore, for whatever we think of the church and scandals and all the rest of it, I mean, good God, look what is happening now with that bloody, is it Sarah Mullally? And she's just been voted in as the Archbishop of Canterbury, first woman one. And it was either between her or a bishop called Rose. Now, funnily enough, I met Bishop Rose, never realised she was in the running for Archbishop of Canterbury, and she had to interview me. It was part of there was a forming of there is a forming of a monastic open community. And anyway, she apparently actually, exclaimed for everyone to hear in a big some bishopy meeting, church meeting, important thing. She said, this woman bishop thing isn't working. Anyway, here we are with Sarah Mullally, who's just had the guy, what was he called, Reverend somebody or other, because she's got blood on her hands because a vicar killed himself because this woman Mullally really cocked up with safeguarding. Well, basically she just didn't do the job properly, and questioning whether she should really be in that position of power with what's gone on. By the sounds of it, Rose wasn't too keen to take it on. I don't think, it's a bit like the BBC, isn't it? They keep putting different people into parts where you just think, what the dickens? Just because they're trying to make it all look good and look like it's all equality and amazing, and people see through it. They just think it's bullshit. Just like, ugh, stop. Yeah, same thing with trying to make sure that the next archbishop was a woman. It's just turned out to be an embarrassment in that sense. Not, she could have been a man and done those things and still be made, but it's just the thing, you're like, oh, from her very, investiging ceremony, yeah, it wasn't good. That wasn't good. It wasn't cool. So when people aren't going to church, there are things, there's a sense of community. It's another string of community breaking down there, aside from the fact that there is not this time where people are sitting in church and there's amazing stained glass windows, or there's just some sacredness there, or some peace, or time of prayer, or whether you believe it or not, all the Bible stories, all the sermons you're told or whatever, it was still opening you up to some sense that there was something other, that there could be something greater, as well as all the nice stuff about, learning good, solid Christian values. Being inspired. If you get a good minister and they do a good sermon, Reverend Ian Devon, God, he's bloody brilliant. He's great. He just makes Jesus seem very real and just brings the stories to life. And there's lots of ministers like that. There's also lots that aren't like that. Never mind. So yeah, there's a level of one day a week being sacred, having a Shabbat, having a sacred day. That seems a shame to have lost that. And maybe, with all the fear and all that sort of thing, with people not going to church, not having a faith, thinking that they're just puny little people that are being overpowered by the government and overpowered by everything, and what's the point in living? I mean, young people today, that if they watch the news, fuck me, they must just think, why are we here? Like, what is the point of this shit? Oh, bless your hearts, you young people. Don't. No. It's like, you are going to be, if you can get through these tests and trials, mate, you're going to be bomb proof. You're going to be so amazing. And then if you end up becoming spiritually aware, wow, maybe. See, this is the thing. Sometimes this is the thing of the great master plan. People say it's all part of God's master plan. And you think, well, yeah, I guess you have to roll with that. But sometimes the things that can seem so shit, and really like the things that just don't, really not fair, really bad, really hurtful, really painful, physically pain, you've had accidents and cancers and the rest of it. And then sometimes those things in different ways, or your experience of other people having those things happen, that can be a blessing. It can turn out to be a blessing. So I just like, I came across, there's a guy, he comes from Devon, he's a famous poet, Martin Shaw, and I came across an interview he did with the guy Metaxas, the Greek guy, what is it called? Socrates in the City. And he was speaking about lots of things, but ending up becoming a part of the Orthodox Church. And he talked about inner presence. And that's the thing in you. I just think that's the thing in you that can light up. That's the thing in you that is the connection in your core of your spirit, soul, self with the thing that is higher. Be it your divine self as part of source. Source is all, everybody's soul's connected, or whether it's source as in Holy Spirit, it's the big balloon of everybody all in another realm, a dimension, or just off this planet, or however it works. We like to think of things geographically, don't we? And I just think that all of those, I just think there's such validity and truth in all the things on the list, all the things in the in this board. I think for good or bad, negative, up, down, black, white, whatever you want to call it, yeah, there is some divine truth in all of it. And maybe our planet is not meant to be, or this human experience on this planet is not meant to be all bells and roses. Or maybe it is, but we haven't quite got to that bit yet. But that's kind of like the constant searching, isn't it? The constant, like, oh, the carrot is just over there. We're looking to this age, or it's going to come, the age of Aquarius. And I think, and actually it's just struck me, that's the whole bloody point of what Jesus is saying, is go within, look within. The kingdom is within you. Like, you can all have it now. You can do it now. You have a choice. But we're getting into, so easily sucked into that human default setting of negative. And there is all the stuff being pumped out. Now, whether this is demonic forces, whether this is power crazy people that know about occult stuff and they're using it to their right royal advantage to keep us all under, like, just feeding enough money and wealth into the system that funnels up to them, or everyone's got to have a cleaner, haven't they? Everyone's got to have a toilet cleaner. So those rich people need some of us. So anyway, in spiritual terms, that's the whole point, isn't it? Is realising that divine power that is within you. Now, whether I would advise doing what Martin Shaw did, of going to different churches, and seeing which one fits you, getting different books, looking at different videos. A good starting point is, I'm going to have to put the name down here, but it's the two American brothers, and they just, I think the program's for kids really, but when I was doing my ministry course, it was a really good starting point for anything, because like when we moved on to a different faith path, because it's just like animated things and them speaking, and it's like bite-sized chunks of understanding of history of different faiths and things. It was fascinating. They're great. I'll put the thing in. Even just accessing it at the beginning, to access it at that lower level, rather than like reading, you know, big academic books like I'm starting to wade into, but establishing for yourself some sort of spiritual connection and understanding your divinity. And when I say understanding the power within you, that's not the power to go and be those elitist rulers. That's the power to really live with presence. And when you're living in presence, and people say God is love and everything is love and all of that, and it can all sound a bit, that is kind of the bottom line. When you can feel that inner presence in you, however you understand it to be, your soul, your spirit, your connection to God, that it is God, that's the God, whatever the thing, when you can understand that that is in you and your connection, you don't even have to understand whether that is in the cosmos, heavenly realm, another dimension, just here on this planet. It doesn't matter. But we are all living on this planet, and really we just need to get on. Life would just be so much easier. And I still think that people can be in different faith paths and different religions and different all the rest of it, or none at all. But I think the key thing is to understand that there is supernatural. If there is supernatural, there probably is this dark life force going on. Dark light forces, I can only describe it as dark and light. It seems the best way for everyone to understand it. And I just think that, I think of the thing of like light, you cannot get rid of darkness through force. You dispel darkness by switching on the light, and if the light gets brighter, the darkness just diminishes away and away and away. That's where it's at, really. That's the bottom line. It's realizing that bit of you inside, that there is a strong power in that, and you can live in that power. You can share that power out with others. You can still all be completely individual and different and do different stuff, but instead of going, oh no, you'd be like, oh man, yeah, that's cool, yeah, look at that, it's not for me, but I'm over here doing that. You know, we have that choice. We absolutely have that choice. That's enough. Do with that what you will. Peace be with you. Oh man, lots of ramblings today. Well done if you made it to this point. Do please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. You're not signing your life away, you're just helping me out, and you're spreading this to other people. The God of YouTube will then share it out with others, and that's a great way to help my channel, is to share these videos with other people. I hope that what I share is stuff that is needed in these times, and yeah, we can all live in a better world, because we do have the power to change it.